Hello, everybody. How you doing? I see y'all in the chat. Hello, everybody in the chat. I am Dr. Alicia with Coaching with Dr. Alicia, and I am so happy to introduce my guest here. His name is Johnathane Gaffney, and the title of our conversation today is The Key to a Quality Life. We're talking about how exercise boosts overall well-being, but in particular, we are talking about why it's so important to start living a healthy lifestyle mentally and physically as a youth. And if we instill some of these qualities in young people, when they grow up, they will have a nice mix of ability to be able to take their physical health seriously. And studies are showing that kids who compete at an early age grow up to be amazing adults who feel good and confident about themselves, as well as knowledge about how to take care of their bodies. However, there's a balance to it. And so today I'm going to have Johnathane Gaffney, and y'all follow him on Instagram at Coach the Mental. He's also on TikTok and Facebook, but Instagram is what I have up here. You know, you can follow him, and he is here today to help us have a conversation about youth sports, mental health, the positives and the negatives. It's a double-edged sword having a child in youth sport like myself. And Johnathane, welcome, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely, Dr. Alicia. I'm so excited to be here and be introduced to your audience. I am Johnathane Gaffney, go by Coach Mental Health. I am a Fort Worth native. My people are from Eastwood, Texas, and Fort Worth, Texas. So I tell people I'm country hood. So I mean that being funny, but I truly believe that showing up as my best self and showing up authentically who I am. I might say some things that you agree with, some things that you say, well, I don't know about that. But I do speak from my own perspective and experience. So I have over 20 years in coaching and teaching. I've also done some things in school administration, public services. And so our company that we started in 2021 really gears itself toward helping athletes, families, all of those individuals in the circle of that athlete's world understand the importance of holistic wellness, not just physical wellness, but their mental wellness, their physical wellness, and even if I can open up this conversation, spiritual wellness as well. And so we talk in all of those different terms to be able to support the whole circle of support to that athlete and to those individuals that are in that athlete's life.
Oh, thank you so much for introducing yourself. That is so great. You're country hood, but I'm like hood because I'm from Gary, Indiana,
Okay.
and that's the hood too.
Okay. So I'm around my people then.
You're around your people.
Good.
You just had a little warmer climate down there.
Oh, it's hot. I wouldn't call it warm. It's hot down here.
And I mean, it's so interesting you bring this whole thing up because when I was in high school back in the 90s, we had a team, the Gary, Indiana Roosevelt Panthers, who won state. Wow. And in that year, we were the poorest school in the state.
Wow.
That was up against the richest school in the state. Wow. For a state title, and we won. And it was like Gary won, and it really changed the whole entire ESPN did a spotlight on us. It was like almost, and simultaneously, while we won state in Indiana, we were the murder capital of America. Wow. Simultaneously. So it's so funny. The team at the time were like, we bad boys. They used to call themselves the bad boys. Yeah. And it was like a term of endearment. And it talked about, again, the double-edged sword, the highest murder rate. But at the same time, we had this awesome basketball team. And so it was really beautiful just to be able to witness that, how youth sports did so much for the state of Indiana, and for Gary, Indiana in particular. 20 years of coaching and teaching. That is really amazing. How awesome is it in 2021, starting your own business, to really look at the athlete as a holistic person? I really, really enjoy that. Can you dial down a little more about what that means?
Absolutely. So if I could go back to, and this will bring it full circle.
Okay.
Um, you had mentioned something about Gary, Indiana, and the identity of the individuals that were on that court, and then that bled into the town, and that also expanded into the state. And so there's a sports psychology piece of sports. There's a sports sociology piece of sports, and then there's a sports psychology of sports. And so when you're talking about those different areas of sports, you were able to be a part of that moment for those athletes, and you remember it like it was yesterday
Yes.
because you felt what they were going through in the moment. And I think that's the beauty of sports, is it gives you an opportunity to gain perspective. It gives you an opportunity to relate. It gives you an opportunity to celebrate, so much to the fact that you hear they say, to the victor goes the spoils, and then to those who experience that defeat, it's almost like they're deflated with the athlete when something doesn't go the way that they wanted to. And I say that because oftentimes athletes gain their whole identity on what happens on that court or on that field or in that competition. And so what I started to see as an athletic coach is our athletes were starting to almost simultaneously say, I'm not a person who plays sports. I am a basketball player. I am a football player. I am a dancer. I am. And yes, you want them to take ownership of that. But what happens when they're no longer able to do that because of injury, or are no longer able to do that because of whatever circumstances? Their bodies just no longer is allowing them to do that. It creates this cognitive dissonance where you're like, oh my gosh, I thought this is who I was. This is my identity. And I can't sit in this identity anymore. So what do I do with myself? So often what I've seen in my experience is when kids go through that transition, when players go through that transition, they are no longer able to be able to say, these are skills that I have. They say, this is who I am. And not being able to separate that causes them to act out in ways that aren't healthy for themselves. So dialing down into that is, first off, helping athletes understand that they are people and they are a person that possess a certain skill set that gives them the proclivity to be great or good at this sport. So we really talk a lot to our athletes about transferable skills. And we talk to our athletes about the ideal that if you can understand how to strategize on a football field, you also can understand how to strategize in a math class. It's the same skill, just applied differently. We talk to our athletes about the ideal of resilience. If you understand what it takes to run after run after run after run after run, then you understand the ideal that it takes to problem solve and work through that problem and work through that problem and work through that problem. It's going to take resilience. So we focus a lot of our attention on teaching our athletes transferable skills so that they can then use that in an applied way, such as in a job or a career. So the first step is the identity of the person and not the player.
Oh my God, there's so many questions I have about that. And before I get into that, everybody in the chat, thank you for joining us. I am here with Johnathane Gaffney, and he's got 20 years of experience as a coach and then started his business, which I think is so wonderful to do to help athletes with all of this, is what he's talking about. And today we're going to talk about the importance of having importance of exercise and also the importance of your mental health and spiritual health, especially for young athletes. But everybody in the chat here who are joining us, do y'all have children in youth sports? If you do, share that there in the chat. Let us know in the chat if you have a child who played youth sports and what sport did they play, because be sure to put your information in there and let us know, because it's so fascinating as you talk about identity, you talk about student athletes, and you also talk about transferable skills as a college professor. College professor. It is nothing like what I go through, because at one point I was thinking maybe we should stop calling them student athletes and start calling them athlete student, because it seems like the athlete part goes first. And let's see what everybody in the chat thinks. Okay, so says what she wants, says she's got a child basketball, track, and football. We got football players here. And I think it's so fascinating because so many on college campuses, they get that scholarship because that's how they get through college. And as a college professor, I'm thinking, I teach a professional program. I teach in a social work program. You have to do an internship. And our baseball players, they never could do internships because they always had to cram everything into fall semester, because spring semester was all about baseball and we couldn't touch them during baseball season. And it's really kind of difficult. Our football players, we couldn't do anything with them fall semester, nothing. Spring semester, maybe you can squeeze a little bit in spring semester, but it was just always a workaround into trying to train them to become social work practitioners. But at the same time, they had this pressure on them, not only through their parents, but also through the university, to take up all of their time was taken up with that sport. And it was so difficult on the college campus in particular to get them to have that sort of balance. How do you work with any college athletes?
I do.
Okay.
And to speak to that, we can talk about a number of reasons why that exists. I always, when I talk about this system, and people understanding college athletics is a business, and it's starting to become more and more of a business the earlier students are being introduced to sports. As early as middle school, you're seeing kids get recruited by Division I powerhouse universities. And so when you are in a capitalistic society, you have to something is being capitalized. That's what makes a capitalistic society go.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, there are hidden curriculum, there are hidden messages, there are hidden agendas that happen in that type of setting and environment. And so these student athletes are the prize. They are the bell cow. They are the thing that is driving revenue and sales up. That's where you get this ideal of NIL money, where it's name, image, and likeness. Is because for a long time, college athletes were not being compensated for the value they were adding to the university, financial value. And so the trade-off is we will use your skill, we will capitalize on your name, we'll sell a lot of jerseys, we'll sell a lot of tickets, and in the process of that, you get a degree. Well, like you said, Dr. Alicia, that degree means absolutely nothing if that person doesn't know what they're doing when they leave that university. I can imagine getting a degree in mathematics as a college athlete, because how many times did I get an opportunity to apply that skill? And so that said, it's a systematic problem. It's a systematic change that needs to happen. When I talk to the athletes that I work with at the collegiate level, I try my best to help reinforce to them to remember who they are.
Yes.
And that's a foundational piece that they need before they get to college. Because if they don't remember who they are, they're going to lose themselves in all of the lights. When I played athlete, when I was an athlete myself, my coach used to call it a circus. You are in a circus. You are on the floor, and all around you are the lights, the spectators, the animals that you have to deal with, all of the different things that you can associate that symbolize a circus. And what you have to tell that student is, you can step on that tarp, you can step on that mat, you can step on that gym floor and perform. But when that thing is over with, you have to understand to keep the main thing the main thing.
Oh, I really need your help with that. I'm gonna ask you for some advice because I'll talk about it later. But before I do that, I just want to welcome everybody. We're talking about student athletes. We're talking about the great part about physical health and mental health and the toughness it takes to be able to practice, to get that discipline. You got to be disciplined in order to be a really wonderful athlete. And so I think it's a wonderful job, but you have to make sure, from what our guest here, Johnathane Gaffney, is saying, you got to make sure that they're not revolving their identity around this sport, because they're more than that particular sport. But before I do that, there are three things I want to tell you. First of all, I am a licensed therapist and I am a coach, but not a coach like what Johnathane was for 20 years. I'm a coach. I'm a couples coach. And you can contact me at Coaching with Dr. Alicia. The second thing I want to tell you is that you can follow me on Instagram, Coaching with Dr. Alicia. And thirdly, to get information on when I go live and when I have these great conversations, especially for Mental Health Monday and on Sundays, Johnathane, I am talking about healthy relationships on Sunday nights. So I do that. And then on Tuesdays, I'm on Fly Nubian Queen. And so I'm the therapist, the resident therapist on Fly Nubian Queen on Tuesday. But to find out when I go live with people such as yourself, Johnathane, text the word love, LOVE, to 87948. Yes. All right, everybody. Let me get to my question now. I got a question. Let me tell you, I'm a parent of a student athlete. Let me just tell you, I have 3 children. My first child, his name is Quincy. He is 6'8". Don't even play basketball. What was I thinking? He loved volleyball, actually. Volleyball was his favorite sport, but when he went to high school, he got into a kind of like boarding school, and they didn't have volleyball. But he did not like basketball. Everybody thought he should like basketball, but he doesn't, because he's a tall Black man, and everyone assumes he's a basketball player and all of that. So he kind of was like, didn't do sports. My second child, my daughter, who's 17, she's graduating from high school. She was in track. She was in soccer. Amazing player. She did not want to do it anymore. She was like, I do not want to be a student athlete. I do not care about this sport. So I just said, okay, fine. Don't do it. But my baby, my youngest one, she's a dancer. She's a competitive dancer. And I finally got one child of mine who really is holding on to some sort of sport. And I'm going to tell you, in the dance world, I think I was talking to you about it before, it is so competitive. She's got to audition for everything. She just auditioned for the dance team. There's 80 girls auditioning for 25 spots. And she made it on the team, but she's cried for 3 days because they make cuts every day. And it's so hard for these coaches. And I like to support the coaches, I like all of this, but it is so hard. What advice would you give to me as a parent? This weekend coming up, she's got a dance competition. The weekend after that, a dance competition. It ain't no joke. Cutthroat.
Yeah, I understand.
What do you have? What advice do you have for parents?
Yes.
How can we help our children gain some balance? Because she's crying.
Yes. So I think that first starts with perspective. Okay. And helping them understand why they are doing what they're doing. It's, why are you driven? Is this intrinsic? Or is this something that people are pressing on you to do because you're 6'8" and you're a tall Black male? And that extrinsic motivation is going to run out when it starts to become difficult. And so a lot of those students that are driven, it comes from within. Okay. So I think it also takes that an understanding of balance and what that looks like. So if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating properly, if you're not doing all of those things to help your body be prepared for that competition, then yes, it's going to show itself at the worst moments. I used to hear this statement, and forgive me if this sounds uh, um, too forward, but piss poor preparation promotes piss poor performance.
Ooh,
And so,
piss. Wait, hold on. Slow down. Piss poor preparation means piss poor performance.
so that statement is this ideal that you have to prepare yourself for competition at all times.
Yes.
Emmett Smith said that all men are created equal, just some work harder in off season. And some
Yeah.
people don't have an off season because it's not an off switch. And so it's practicing that well-roundedness. For example, one of the things that I would talk to if I were coaching your daughter would be breathing techniques before she gets onto the court, because oftentimes when we are feeling certain types of anxieties inside of our bodies, we hold our breath. That's why breath work is so important. When we're tense, we hold our breath. When we are scared, we hold our breath. We tense our bodies up and we don't allow oxygen to flow through our bodies to then be able to move freely. Then the thing that I talk to my athletes about is I say, what's the worst that can happen if you bomb this? If you go out there and you just lay an egg,
Yeah.
what's the absolute worst that can happen? They'll get talked about on social media. Okay. Anything else? Well, coach, my life is going to fall apart and I'm going to lose everything and I'm not going to be able to get to that next promotion and things of that sort. And I said, well, if you thought that, then why did you put so much work into the moment that you were preparing for it? So are you
Mm.
playing to win or are you playing not to lose? There's a difference.
Mm.
When you play
Mm-hmm.
to win, you attack that thing with all vigor and energy. When you're playing not to lose, you're saying, I can't. You shy away from that moment because you say, I can't lose. I can't lose. And that doesn't help you show up as your best self. Parents, have conversations with your athletes to remind them of who they are outside of the sport. So
Mm.
how do you identify with your athlete outside of the sport? I like to tell my daughter all the time she's beautiful. Not because she's a dancer, just because she's beautiful. Her spirit is beautiful. I like to give words of affirmation to my son when he's on a basketball court and he misses a shot. And I said, son, you've done this a million times. You can do it. You can do it. Just because you didn't do it that one time doesn't mean you can't do it. So instead of being my son's coach
Yes.
after the game, I'm his dad after the game. I'm his coach during the game.
Okay.
But after the game, I turn into dad, which is nurturing, loving, affirmation, reinforcement, giving him the solid foundation of you can do it. Another thing that I would suggest with parents is understanding how your child's sport works so that you can identify when they say, Mom, I'm tired. What does that actually mean? Well, that probably means I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning because I had workout this morning at 4 o'clock from 4 to 6. I then
Mm.
had to go to do weight training or stretching or physical therapy from 6 to 7. Had class, then I had to come back to the gym to do film or to do. Then I had to go back to class. So if you understand how their sport works, then you understand how their day is situated, so that you can call and give them check-ins. So when
Mm.
one of my athletes who went away to Timbuktu, Arizona, I don't even remember the name of the city, but he played for a Division 3 team because he didn't get recruited by a Division 2 or Division 1. So he went there, and he said he was feeling lonely. I
Oh.
said, son, tell me, how is your day working? And he goes through his day, and he goes to practice, comes back to his dorm, goes to practice, come back to his dorm, does an online school for an hour, goes back to practice, comes back to his dorm. And he did that for 3 months. So no wonder he's feeling lonely, because the only human contact and socialization he's getting is at practice. And at practice, they're worried about a product being produced.
Yeah.
They're not worried about a player or
Mm.
a person. They're worried about a product being produced. So understanding that, I was able to start picking up the phone on Saturdays right before he left. They left to leave on Friday mornings or Friday evenings. Saturday morning, they're at the location they're playing, and I would call them probably around Saturday afternoon. I say, "Hey, son, just thinking about you, making sure that you're okay." Just that enough started to change his perspective of I'm not alone. Then I told him, surround yourself with your circle. Who's your circle of
Mm.
support? Coach can't be there physically for you, so he started to go to a church to help him with his support.
Yes.
And so he got plugged into and surrounding himself with people who would speak life into him outside of the sport.
That is so, it's the nurturing. I think what you're talking about is the nurturing. Because let me tell you something. Them ladies in church, especially some black mamas in them churches, they gonna love you up. They
Say,
gonna feed you.
say
They gonna
it.
do, baby.
Say it. He
You
needs
gonna
that
get
home
some
cooked meal.
hugs.
That alone, that food, that smell,
Yes,
that sensory experience. You like, man, I'm back at home,
that's
even though
right.
you're not, but you are.
Let me tell you, there ain't nothing like church. I wasn't a student athlete, but I used to sing in this choir. It was a free choir, and we just sang because we like to eat the church. We eat the church food afterwards in the basement. That was some really good, made us feel good because we're at a PWI, all white school, and we go to this black church in Bloomington, Indiana. Ain't many there, and they just loved us to death. We enjoyed it. It was so important. This is really good. I really what I'm really enjoying is your advice to parents. No matter how they do, whether they win or whether they lose, you still give them unconditional love. You still give them encouragement. You still push them, but you tell them, you still give them love as a parent. And I think that is so great because I think so many of us, especially male athletes, gets their self-esteem is tied so closely to whether they win or lose.
That's
And
it.
they think that if they lose, then they're a loser.
That's
And
it.
they think that if they win, then they're a winner.
That's
And
it.
that's not necessarily the case. and I just you just don't you want to have your child in sports because it takes up hold on, dance takes up a lot of money. Those costumes, the hair, all of that stuff takes up a lot of money. It takes a lot of resources. And my thing with my daughter is, are you having a good time? I want you to have a good time. Listen to your coaches. Let the coaches do what the coaches do. But my encouragement to her is I want you to really get out there and have fun and not worry about there's judges. There's 3 judges. Any competition she goes to, she'll place. She'll perform just as good and maybe she wouldn't place. Or they will do just great, but I want her to have fun in what she's doing. And so my job is to give her a hug and love her unconditionally.
Yes, ma'am. And can I add to that, Dr. Alicia?
Yes.
I would also ask them, what are you becoming?
Uh-huh.
What are you becoming from this? Are you becoming bitter? Are
Uh,
you becoming self-critical? What are you becoming because of this experience? Are you learning something about yourself that you can use later? Are you becoming a person that says, you know what, this was a hard season and I overcame that, so I know I'm resilient? What is your perspective about what are you experiencing? And I think that's the part that I think can be the focal point of the parent is
yes.
how is your student athlete, your baby, your child growing as a person? Because yes, challenge creates character.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
it reveals character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how you win and how you lose. It was funny. I was talking to my husband the other day, and we were trying to figure out how Sha'Carri Richardson was doing. And I said, she needs to take a page from the Jamaicans because the Jamaicans know how to lose. When they lose, they still laughing and smiling and carrying on. Good job. They're encouraging. That's your character. How you win and how you lose says a lot about your character. And I was like, well, let's see how Sha'Carri acts when she doesn't win, because eventually she's going to win. And that's a guarantee. Sometimes you're going to win and sometimes you will lose. So I was just telling my husband just yesterday, okay, I want to see her lose. I want to know how she's going to lose.
Yeah.
What is that going to reveal about her character? Now, I will say somebody got to her and helped her
She's
out.
grown up very much. Yes. So if you followed her story, shout
Yes.
out to her circle, which is why it's important to know who's around you. She had a coach, and I don't remember his name, so I don't want to try to name drop, but he had started working with her through
Yes.
some of the things she was challenged with because she's always had the talent. She's always had the talent. She's from Dallas, actually. Yes, so she graduated from a local Dallas school, and so she's always had the talent. The talent is how did she harness that talent in critical moments. And so from the time that she went to the Olympic trials and the situation happened that was unfortunate to the time where she was able to make it back to the Olympics or make it to the Olympics, excuse me, there was growth happening. And I think
Woo!
that's the part that I think as a parent, you sometimes have to sit back and let your child grow. And that's why I said, what are you becoming from this? And that's hard sometimes. It's the same thing that when your child, you say, don't touch that stove, don't touch that stove, don't touch that stove. And they go to reach for that stove. You say, in this moment, I have to let them learn a hard lesson. And some lessons are learned in a hard way with sports. And so there is so much benefit. There is so much research that you mentioned it earlier about people who engage in sports and how they become resilient professionals and so on, et cetera. But it's with the right circle of support that is guiding them through how to see this season of challenge as an opportunity for growth.
Oh, that is so wonderful. I really, I would have to say, I've been fortunate enough with my daughter in competitive dance, and she also dances at her high school. She's had some really amazing coaches. And I don't know what it is. I don't know, but they really have a system in place to get rid of some of the bad coaches, I suppose. But they really do focus on developing them. So she's now a sophomore on the team. So she's been there once her freshman year. She's a rising sophomore. They had a meeting with them and gave them leadership skills. You guys start to become leaders, cultivate and mentor the freshmen that are coming in the dance. You guys set how you want practices to be. You guys lead. They lead all of the stretches, all of the toning, all of the exercises. They put the sophomores in charge of the freshmen coming in for junior varsity. And that part is what I was like really proud of, that they are cultivating and really leaning on the sophomores now to help the freshmen along. And they're giving them tips. They're saying, listen, if you see a bunch of freshman girls on the dance team just hovering around, you stand in the middle of them because it gets catty. Did you mention you had a daughter who does dance?
I did. She's also a sophomore lieutenant for her dance team. So I totally get it. I just did a seminar with their girls a couple months ago about the ideal of toxic leadership.
Woo! Boy, that dance world can be vicious.
It is, but I think it's
girls.
I think it's rooted in this. It's rooted in an identity crisis. I think that's what it's rooted in. It's anytime you compete against someone, you get this sense that you're better than them if your results end up better than their results. I'll say it that way. And some take that persona on to say, I am better than you because my dance results is better than yours. And not look at it from a holistic. That's why it's important to develop this holistic athlete, this holistic person, because just because you're good at this doesn't mean you're good at that.
Right.
And that's where you have to understand and balance the things that are your strengths and the things that are areas of improvement. And so as an athlete, you get that. You get the feedback from your coach that says, hey, your jump tuck is great. I don't know if that's the right term. My daughter's probably laughing at me right now. But your left split isn't that good.
Yeah.
So you have this down, work on this. And taking that and teaching students to use that as a transferable thing to do in math class, to do in life, to do at a career, to be able to say, you've been doing well in this area of life, but this is an area that you can improve on. So that goes full circle to that holistic person and being healthy spiritually, mentally, and emotionally and physically, and making sure that we show up as a whole human being instead
Yeah.
of a person who is deflecting because there's one strong area and I don't want you to see that weak area. Which goes
Ah,
back to another statement you made. I want to recapture this.
yes.
You said earlier a lot of young men's identities are tied into sports. If they win, they're a winner. If they lose, they're a loser. I think culturally, we situate that, and I call it this, I call it the kingdom of boydom.
Ooh.
As boys are growing up, they start to see at about third and fourth grade a comparison. They start to kind of look over to their right and their left and say, oh, wait, that kid is taller than me. That kid has bigger build than I do. Okay. And then let's not even get into the academic part where if
Mhm.
I get that paper put on my table and it shows a C and I look over and I see this A and I'm like, oh gosh, I guess he's smarter than me. So from that moment on, boys start to develop their identity based off of comparing themselves to other boys or other people. Let me say it that
Yeah.
way. And so if we aren't able to capture that moment to start helping students understand what kind of smart they are, you may be, those who play sports are normally kinesthetically intelligent. They also may be spatially intelligent,
Ah.
but
Mhm.
I have a proclivity to numbers. I may be logically, mathematically intelligent, and that helps me in the sport because I understand angles and I understand. So if I'm able to tap into that skill to say, this is a transferable skill you have. You have an understanding and awareness of space. Use that same understanding
Mm.
and awareness in science class,
Mm.
in social
Mhm.
studies class when you're talking about mapping. Use that
Mm.
same understanding when you're talking about possibly pursuing a career in engineering, because that same logical brain that you have for numbers in sports, you can still use that for statistics. You can still use that for. So I think that's where you start to give power to athletes as people. Is starting to say, here's some things that I see you show up as that can be
Yeah.
beneficial in other areas.
This transferable skills, I think, is so remarkable because being from Gary, Indiana, I graduated from a performing arts school.
Awesome.
And a lot of us, we didn't go into the arts. Many of us did, but a lot of us didn't. But it was something about getting up on the stage, being able to perform. I mean, I think about that when I'm in front of an audience of students or when I'm doing a talk at a convention or I'm doing talks. I'm thinking, wow, the skills I learned at Emerson performing arts school, I'm using it right now because let me tell you something, to get in front of my high school and to perform among a bunch of teenagers who don't care about you, they will talk about you really bad. If you can make it through that, this everything else pales in comparison. You
And
know.
that's a growth. That uncomfortable season
Yes.
allows you to grow. So as parents, we can't shy away from that when our child is saying, I'm being challenged.
Yeah.
No, that's an opportunity for them to grow. What you
Yeah.
don't want to do is allow that challenge to become harm.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because the high school I went to was very nurtured, was competitive. It was competitive, but it was nurturing.
Yeah.
And it just felt good because here we are playing classical music at the best. And here we are, some hood. We from the hood. We from Gary,
Yeah.
Indiana, the hood. Our clothes don't look good. My hair is all fried up in the sky, all stuck to my head, big
You
old
gotta show a
glasses.
picture. You gotta show a picture. I'm just
I
kidding.
gotta show you a picture. It wasn't cute.
I'm
That
kidding.
was
I'm
like cute
kidding.
in high
So
school.
can I ask this question, Dr. Alicia?
Yeah.
What were those things you said your environment was nurturing? I think this is
Yes.
an important conversation for parents. What were
Yes.
the things as a student that you experienced that said, I felt like they were nurturing me?
Ah, I gotta think about that because um there was you know what it was? It was a sense of belonging.
Mm,
You really felt like the teachers really loved us. I really felt loved by the teachers. I felt the principal loved us, and it permeated throughout. We had a sense of pride about being at Emerson. We even had a script. And you would say your name. I am a student at Emerson Performing Arts School. My major is such and such. Like, they gave you just a sense of pride in who and what you are, no matter where you come from. But they made everything very competitive because you had to get up there and perform in front of everybody, and you didn't want to. Let me tell you, I would be up all night practicing because I didn't want to look stupid in front of everybody, because they'll be laughing at you. But it was the laughter wasn't mean. The laughter was like, oh, you really messed up, you better do better next time. It was like a realness. It wasn't fake. Everything was authentic. It was like, okay, you need to practice. Don't even get up. They were like, don't even get up there and do that again if you can't sing. They were talking to you, and it was honest. So, and if you did a great job, it was an honest applaud. So it really was something that I took with me, because leaving Gary and going to an all-white institution, culture shock. But I had to lean on the fact that I knew who I was going into it. I had a good sense, even though academically I had to catch up a little bit, but I felt good about myself.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that I think I wanted to capture for parents, is when, in telling your story, you said that there was a sense of belonging.
Yes.
There was a sense of encouragement. There was a sense of realness. There was a sense of authentic celebration when you did things that demonstrated that your effort showed up in this moment. Yeah. It wasn't that you won or lost. It was your effort that said, man, you put a lot of effort into this. So we're going to apply the fact that your demonstration of that effort, it's like that show what you know. When we talk to our students, and when I was an administrator, we would say, this test gives you an opportunity to show what you know. Yeah. And instead of putting it as if you fail this test, that means you're a failure. No. It's this is always an opportunity. When you step on that stage, honey, this is an opportunity for you to show the God-given talent. Forgive me if that's something that's offensive, but this is where this is the hat that's coming on now. This is the daddy hat. Okay. Show the God-given talent that you've been blessed with, honey, and just show it to the world with all the joy that you can possibly think of. That's the mindset that I tell my daughter before she goes and compete. I tell her not to worry about the lights, not worry about the steps. Don't worry about the choreography. You've practiced it. You know it. Now this is an opportunity for you to give that expression to the world, which is what we all have. We all have gifts and talents that the world can benefit from. And those individuals who play sports, those doctors who go and do surgery, those piano players who give the most amazing type of choruses, those people who sing. I'm not a singer. So those people like my wife who are singers that can sing like an angel, that's an opportunity for them to show what they know, show the gift that is inside of you. And that takes the pressure off of that athlete, because it's like, I get to be me. I don't have to try to be anybody else but
that's
me.
Right. Yes. And you know what? What this reminds us is that we all have our own genius. And what I love about youth sports is expose yourself to it all, because you never know. Like my son, I thought basketball was where he was going to go. And he's like, but he was on that volleyball team that one year. They were undefeated because he could play the volleyball. He thought his skill, he did not like all that running. He never liked to run. So he never really caught on to basketball. He didn't like guarding people. He didn't like the physicality of it. He just not his temperament, But volleyball, he was a beast.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because I've seen it in unfortunately, the other side of that is I'll tell a story really quick. I don't know how much time we have.
Yeah, we got time.
I'll tell a really quick story. They did an ESPN story about this young man whose dad, from the time he was 8 turned him into a machine. This was in the early 80s going into the 90s. He was a quarterback, and I don't remember his name, and I don't want to say his name just in case I get his story wrong. But long story short, he was not allowed to eat cake, sugar, anything from the time he was 8 years old until he stopped playing sports. His dad trained him into a machine. He ended up going to be the starting quarterback for USC, ended up getting drafted #1. And when he got drafted, he said to the camera, I had spent so much time of my life trying to live up to the expectation that my dad put on me. I no longer liked the sport. I actually hated the sport.
Oh.
So when he got into the NFL, he started throwing games.
Yeah. Rebellion.
He was like, I got to do something different than what these people were expecting of me, because this is starting to hurt me physically, harm me physically. He was doing drugs. He was doing all kinds of explicit behaviors to try to cope with the fact that the pressure of being him had gotten so great because of the expectations of the people around him.
Wow, that is really, really something. I'm glad I didn't force my son into basketball. I just was kind of like, okay, well, you're almost 7 feet tall, but okay. With 6 tall. Okay, fine. Don't do it. He's a science person. And then my daughter, she didn't want to do track, and she didn't want to do much of anything, really. And I was like, okay, fine, But, I will say my youngest, from the moment she was 3 years old, she has always wanted to be on the stage. I couldn't stop her if I wanted to.
That's beautiful.
And that's the only reason why she's doing it, because I for sure can find something else to do with the thousands of dollars every month that I spend writing these checks. Not to mention the travel. I mean, hotel, and her nationals is going to be in Destin, Florida.
Awesome.
So, I mean, come on. It better be something. But from the time she was 3, seriously, every time I would take her somewhere and there was a stage, I couldn't get her down off of that stage.
And so she's living in her zone of genius.
Yeah, she's living in her genius.
That's the difference.
Better.
That's the difference. And so going back to that balancing, kind of going full circle to what we've talked about, I think it's okay for you to push your children into taking safe risks. I think it's important, when you start talking about the ideal of youth being exposed early to sports. I think it's important for you to show them what an active life looks like, an active lifestyle looks like, modeling for them. I was one of those players that was upset at my coach because I'm a demonstration coach. I am a person that gets out on the court, gets out on the field, and actually does the drill with them. And I used to get upset as a player when I had my coaches be like, you need to. And I'm like, man, you can't even walk.
Why don't you do it?
We're like, what? And so I think it's important as a parent, if we're pushing our child to get uncomfortable, pushing our child to grow in this, that we're demonstrating it ourselves. What are you doing as a parent that they say, oh man, dad is really struggling with that? I let my son go run with us when I go work out with college athletes, and them college athletes be kicking my tail. They be kicking my tail, but I try to stay with him, and he sees me huffing and puffing, and he's like, Daddy, that was a hard workout, huh? And I'm like, yeah, but did you see me quit?
Yeah.
So now when I ask him to do it, he knows the model of, oh, I've seen Daddy try. I've seen Daddy put himself in uncomfortable positions in order to show up in that moment. So as a parent, I encourage us to continue to give our children a safe risk. If this is a bar that they're used to jumping, raise it just a little bit so that they have enough feet to challenge themselves without destroying themselves if they can't do it.
God, that is so great. Yeah. And I think that's so great. And modeling for your children on healthy behavior is really the best way. I mean, you can talk to them all you want, but they're really watching you, and they're going to do exactly what you do. That is what they're really going to do. And it is staying in tune with your children. Like, after every competition, I really have a heart-to-heart with my daughter, and I let her know, you did a wonderful job here. How did you feel about this? And, she makes fun of herself, which I like. She doesn't take herself too seriously anymore. And I say, you were really having a meltdown before you went on that stage. Is this something you want to do? And she was like, yes, I do. I'm like, so I don't know. It's something that I try to gauge where she is, because I don't want her to be crushed. I mean, she's the only Black girl. I mean, we live in an pretty much all white community now, and she's the only one. And I never know if these microaggressions and all of that. And I try to tell her, I know recently there was a video that went viral of a lady that got on stage and hugged everybody on the dance team except the little brown girl whose mom was white and dad was Black. She was a little biracial girl, multi-race girl. And the lady got up there and hugged everybody and never hugged the Black girl. And the lady had to apologize and it became an uproar. But, we had a conversation about that.
Yes.
How did that feel? What do you think? Do you think that was racial, or do you think it wasn't? And we talked about a lot of that microaggressions that could happen. But I'll tell you one thing, microaggressions or not, my daughter is like, say what they want to. It's stuff like that fuels her to want to do that. So
and
just
I
like
think
mama.
that spirit, yes, that spirit right there, what you just said, is what's going to help her through life, because those microaggressions aren't going to stop.
Oh, please.
Those microaggressions, that's where I've heard people say sports is a microcosm of society.
Yes.
And that's where you see the good, the bad, the ugly, the excellent, all of it happens in moments in sports. And so helping our children, it could be a wonderful tool to help our children understand that this is the world that we live in, specifically in various places. Some places more than others. And so I'm from Texas. And so there is a lot that goes on in sports in Texas.
Oh, yes, it is.
And I'll leave it there. But I think that teaches our children how to handle themselves in moments where they are in a situation that isn't for their benefit. They're in an environment that's not for their benefit. And it gives them an awareness that they may not have gotten if they weren't put into that situation. Again, safe risk. Again, there are police officers around. Again, all of those things are helping our students say, okay, I'm not completely in an environment that's unsafe, but I do feel possibly unsafe in this moment. So helping them understand the difference between safety and felt safety. Helping them understand the difference between someone who is genuinely telling you something for your benefit versus someone who's giving you criticisms to tear you down. They're tearing down your character. If as a coach, and this is something as parents that we have to watch out for, because in coaching, just like in police, just like in doctors, there are good and bad apples.
Yes.
So if a coach is always criticizing your student for their personal character, you are stupid, you don't know how to do this, that is an attack on that person's character. Versus if he says your skill set, that skill is what you're lacking. I call it loud love. When I coach, I give loud love. But anytime a parent talks to me, I tell them, what did you hear me say? I always talk about a skill and not the person.
Yeah, that's good parenting.
Make sure you're passing the ball. Your passing is off. Your shooting is off. Make sure that when you shoot the ball, you elevate and actually flicker. I'm giving instruction while I'm yelling.
Yeah.
Versus I'm telling you how you are and you should and this, and I'm attacking you as a person. And if you see that as a parent, that's where you have to step in and say, no, we don't allow that. Because again, at the end of that, you have to go home with that person who has been berated, who's been torn down because they don't feel good about themselves. So you have to step in as a parent and say, no, we're not going to do that.
That is really good. I love that you focus on what they're doing and not them as a person. And that's great. Like even with my daughter, she's a turner. She's good at turns, but she needs to work on her flexibility. She needs to, because dance is everything. Her face, she's got good face. She's got good stage presence, but her flexibility, and she probably needs to be a little stronger, but she's super tall. So that works again. sometimes that works against her because she's got really long legs, so she's got all this stuff, and she recognizes it. And one thing I do like about it is that they applaud each other. They really do, even though they're competing against each other, even on the same team, you know, but they do applaud each other, and they do they really do just encourage each other, even if they mess up. And then they wait for the critiques. They wait later. It'll be a week, a couple of days later before they actually give them critiques about what they could have done better. But in the moment, they're just encouraging them. And so that part I really, really love. Oh my gosh, Johnathane, I got to have you back on here, because every time something good happens in sports, I'm going to have to bring you back on. And then maybe I'll pass your information to my husband and have you on with him, because, you know, he has different set of skills with interviewing and YouTube.
Absolutely.
I would definitely pass you on, because we got a lot of stuff that we never even had a chance to talk about that I wrote down to talk about. So we got to keep this going. I just wanted to say thank you to you, Johnathane Gaffney. Y'all follow him on Instagram, Coach the Mental. And be sure to follow me or reach out to me, Coaching with Dr. Alicia. If you want some help, follow me on Instagram too, at Coaching with Dr. Alicia. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to text on your phone, LOVE, to 87948, so you'll be able to know when Johnathane comes back on. And so let's wrap it all up. Last minute thoughts. I know I've had you on here longer than I wanted to, but
it's okay.
This is such a great conversation. Last minute thoughts to some of the parents. You could be talking to some student athletes. This whole thing about identity around your sport is how it can be a double-edged sword. And I want to talk to you also. Maybe I'll bring you back on and we can talk about what happens when your identity is wrapped around your sport. How can you unwrap it and start? Maybe that'll be another conversation. But and last minute thoughts, things that I didn't quite get to that you want to talk about, be sure to do that. And then let everybody know again where they can find you.
Absolutely. Thank you, first off, for this conversation. I've had a blast. Thank you so much to all of the supporters of this channel. Please follow Dr. Alicia in the work that she's doing. I will say to parents, you are your child's first teacher. And that's in every sense of the word. Your child is watching vicariously through you how you interact with them, how you encourage them, how you support them. And so if you want your child to be a healthy, well-rounded person, you yourself have to demonstrate that as their first teacher. To the athletes, I would say, remember who you are. And if you don't know who you are, that's what life's journey is about, is discovering all the amazing gifts and talents that you have that you get to use in various ways. One of them may be in a sport, but you see often individuals who transfer from sports to film, from sports to acting, from sports to whatever that thing is, because they have used the skills that they've developed to then transfer them into other areas of life. So one day you're going to stop dribbling that ball competitively. One day those dancing shoes are going to be put up competitively. One day you're going to walk off of that floor for the first time or for the last time. And when you do, you want to make sure that when you walk off that floor, you don't leave yourself on there, that you walk off with you leaving it and saying, I gave myself to this in this season. Now I'm going to take all the experiences that I've been able to gain from that and take that with me. And then lastly, to anyone who would like to follow me, I'm going to show our poster, because our poster gives this information. So if you don't mind me being, again, a little country hood.
Oh, wait. Let me bring you into the spotlight.
Yes,
let me see. Here we go. There you go. You're in there solo. Y'all look at that.
So Coach Mental
_
So there we go. This is our information for those who would like to get in contact with me, just to further the conversation. And then last thing I'll say is this is our website. If you would like to get in contact with us, you can scan that QR code and it'll show you our website and the amount of business and things that we do to help individuals, teams, communities, and anyone who would like to get supported by our work.
Excellent. What a great idea. Okay, let me see. How can I okay, there we go. All right. I'm learning this
Thank you,
software.
Dr. Alicia. You working with me. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm working with you, trying to get you blown up here. Yeah, I think this is so great. And I know anything that my husband, Dr. Boyce, talks about is the business side of it. So he's already talking to my daughter about what have you noticed about the business side of
There we
dancing?
go. There we
After
go.
people make the money, because
There we go.
we're counting up. Okay, I know how much it costs for everybody to enter into this competition.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's so great. And thank you so much. Yes, Vincent is telling you great advice. Appreciate it. Enroll your children in the Black Business School. Okay, Vincent. Yes, everybody knows about about best school for our Black children. I'd echo that. It is the best
Yes.
school for our Black. I guess I should be saying that too. Vincent is reminding me.
There we go.
That's what's up. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody. I got to go pick my student athlete up over at dance at 9:30. So she'll be mad at me if I'm late. So anyway, goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye, Jonathan. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a wonderful evening.
You too.